I'd like to welcome everybody to the April installation of the Butterfly Poetry Project. My name is Sandra, and I am a poet, I'm a teacher, and I started this venue here at Nightcap in Pilsen because didn't seem to be a lot of safe spaces for women to create and read, and so I thought about how I need a safe space, and sometimes the audience isn't always receptive to what I had to say or other women had to say, so I decided to create Butterfly Poetry Project. It's a place where women can come and present and honor the divine goddess within themselves, and as they present and create, I'm hoping that they would touch another woman to create and inspire, and so one butterfly takes flight and she touches another butterfly, so that was the inception of the Butterfly Poetry Project. We're going to start with open mic. Today's feature is Lisa Alvarado. I have a lot of wonderful, amazing stuff to say. Give a hand to Lisa. Woo! We're longtime friends, and I'm a really big fan. But I'm going to start with open mic, and I'm not going to do it in order, so I'm going to start with Sylvia.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hey. So I'm a little under the weather, but that did not stop me from coming here today. Actually, the Butterfly Poetry Project is really the first time where I came to Chicago and felt comfortable enough to share part of my story with so many powerful women. So I'm really honored to be here and be a part of this right now. I am my hands, and I see you rest in them. Vibrant colors seep into the grooves of my fingertips. My pores absorb you. Chameleon-like, warmth transforms my melanin. I and my hands, and we move, interrupting space and redefining distances between. I and my hands, and the palms sometimes sweat. Heat transfused, radiance and labor fused. I and my hands, I and my hands, and my hands are stories, illuminated within. Intersections of spiritual, I and my hands, and we are revolutionized faith, making of this a rebel's ritual. I and my hands, and we work and rebuild, transform, create, touch, understand, caress, and love. Labor is love, and I am my hands. Stories like yes. Stories are draped across the room between us, interlocking matter, air, energy, yes. Stories are maneuvering through the crowd, with the crowd, entangled with memories, and sometimes lost signals. I am certain, yes, you look familiar. Stories are swallowed in the handshake, not too firm, but not too soft either, somewhere between modest and honest. I see the most honesty in the softness of their eyes. The way they blink makes me think that time is a blessing. The time it took for your eyes to search within, cartographies of palms. Meanwhile, I read the story in their eyes, the warmth of their aura, the twists in their necks, the movement of their mouths, grooves of skin stories. You know when someone has been through something. If you just listen to the movement of their spine, something subtle shifts, and you know it because you saw it in their spine. The story is there, sitting, waiting to shift, move, shaking between spine and muscle, muscle and skin, skin and warmth, story. Open book, read. The story is there, we are present. Thank you.
I think when I first met Sylvia, I was like, come on, you have to do it. And the first poem she did blew me away. I was like, this is the first time you've read? And I was just blown away. So you can see why I was blown away. And I can't imagine why she hasn't been reading for longer time. So thank you so much for that, those stories. That's awesome. Next up, I'm going to invite Vito. I met Vito the first time here at a reading that he had in his venue. So I love how, tables are turned now. So Vito, a hand for Vito, please. Come on up.
I want to be a prolific, industrious workshop poet. I'm going to spend 80 hours writing 320 haiku with a linking theme that only people in the workshop will see. I want to proudly announce that I went to the Iowa State University writing program in every other sentence. I want to spend 30 hours writing a formal poem only to have my peers suggest I take out all the good parts. I want to cut out all my classical allusions and put in more South Park references to please my hipper-than-thou guest workshop leader. I want to spend 10 times more money entering workshop writing contests than I would ever make with the winnings. For the workshop, I'll try my hand at ballads, concrete poems, villanelles, epithalamions, and sestinas. All of them will only be about poetry. I want to join a really exclusive workshop group that only lets in one person every 12 years. Then I can snub poets outside of the group. At the workshop poetry parties, there will be free wine offered from Trader Joe's and the finest goat cheese. And I will meet prominent poet laureates from different regions. The parties will only be open to other workshop poets. Perhaps I will hit it off with a female poet at the workshop. We will name our first child Sylvia Sexton Dickey Simic Zukowski Carly. My poetry workshop philosophy will be no things but in ideas. If I go to a non-workshop open mic, I will snicker when I hear the street poets because they are so naive and unrefined. And I will tolerate the performance poets because they are entertaining buffoons. If I am decapitated in a terrible car crash on the way to a reading, or if I have a heart attack while writing a sonnet, some of my money will of course go to the poetry workshop along with the Poetry Foundation of Chicago. Just between you and me, I only wrote this poem because I was angry because I was too late to get into the 2013 Chicago Poetry Festival workshop.
Next person up is Edith Abusio, a wonderful poet and sister in many ways. So I'm glad she's able to come up and read. And I have one quote from Gabriel Garcia Marquez. For poets, I think this is really important. What matters in life is not what happens to you, but what you remember and how you remember it. So I'll open Edith to set with that.
These are 40 things you probably did not know about me. 1. As a child, the only thing I hated more than being fat was being brown. 2. The bluest eye can sing my soul into existence. 3. Crushes on girls instigated my journeys into politics, traveling, and spirituality. 4. It's been 3 years and 54 days since I've had sex. 5. I'm saving myself for the conception of my babies. 6. There are things I have no memory of that I know to be true. 7. I don't remember being raped. 7. I also don't remember being born. 9. I have a hearty sexual appetite even though I don't allow myself to climax. 10. Yes, coming triggers me. 11. I've never made love. 12. My spirit is like a sponge, that is why I tend not to hug and why I'd prefer not to sit next to you. 13. My spirituality plummeted when I started having access to Netflix. 14. Dying in ceremony, it's true. Dying in ceremony simply meant that there are things I don't need to be in control of. 15, I'm gradually understanding what it means to be reborn. 16, being spiritual isn't sexy. 17, being a writer isn't sexy. 18, my latest trauma was working full-time as a teaching artist. 19, my dreams are telling me to wake up. 20, I hide behind a shield of laziness. 21, I've been blessed enough to pray with Grandpa Blue Deer and Peruvian champagne. 22, I broke a 3-day silence fast by saying the word shit. 23, also true. All of these are true. 23, at 33, I have quit sucking my thumb 3 times. 24, I'm 33 and I live with my mom. 25, sometimes I feel like a complete failure. 26, I nestle with the idea that my spirit is clumsy but brave. 27, I'm wrapping my brain around the fact that I'm a priestess. 28, I consider Lake Michigan my grandmother. 29, I'm an Omo Oshun. 30, I have a bit of Oya too. 31, I'm afraid the day will come that Ngungun ancestors will no longer speak to me. 32, Oludumare has reminded me that he breathed life into me. 33, my grandmother would never recognize it, but she gave me African ancestry. 34, the only reason I want to fall in love with a man is for his sperm. 35, I have a hunch my soulmate is a woman. 36, even after knowing that the rainbow and breath itself is enough, I have still considered suicide. 37, I won't do it. 38, I chose to be born in this time and space for a reason. 39, my purpose in this lifetime is to bring back memory. 40, this is how I remember. I recommend everybody to do this. It was like writing everything I like feel like I ever needed to write in one poem. It felt great. I really dislike mics, but I will, recording purposes. All right, Golden Lady. You lived during a time of gold, decades before your evangelist rebirth made your eyes see the devil in everything. Back when your hips swayed a mambo, your lips chirped Agustinara, and your heart bled each time you saw Pedro Infante's smile on the silver screen. It was la época del oro, but the only thing golden were the movies and music, not your life. Life gave you a rich father, but an Indian mother, not only Indian, but one with an African bloodline that gave you nostrils that curved out, skin 2 shades darker of what was already considered ugly, which led you to fear the sun draping over your small, petite frame. Your mother was meant to share your fear of the color yellow, but she instead adorned her dark skins in all colors of the rainbow, allowed herself to be sun-kissed even though she was a morena-skinned, pulque drinking, otomi speaking, yerba using witch. How dare she demand dignity? How dare she walk out on her marriage? How dare she leave a house with indoor plumbing and concrete floors? How dare she board a bus out of the town of El Oro with 4 children holding onto her skirts and no man at her side? In your life, it continued to cheat you, unraveling a never-ending series of misfortunes. When life gave you youth, it didn't give you beauty. When life gave you a handsome husband, it didn't give you companionship. When life gave you the pleasure of a man, it didn't give you a maid to help with the 8 babies. But even though your life wasn't golden, you managed to find refuge in one thing: rebirth. Life finally did right by you and allowed you a second chance to be born right. It didn't take the Indian out of your veins or the African out of your pigmentation. It didn't bring back your wasted youth. It didn't erase the scars of birthing. But it did give you this, the illusion of entitlement. Your newfound fate allowed all self-shame to flood onto your eyes, giving them the vision of piousness. This is how you began to see the devil in anything that reminded you of you. This is my most recent legacy, your shame, the scorn you raised my mother with, the self-hate you and your husband created your children with, the memory of seeing your mother being beaten and raped by your father. All that you lost and all that was never given to you is my memory. But see, abuelita, I sit here recording the story that is you, knowing that it is far from the misery you believe it to be, knowing that you are golden. I relish in this as I set aside you condemning me for being dark, fluid, and wrapped in rainbows. Yes, abuelita, I see you as the golden lady that you are. I listen to your stories of how any soul without your Savior is a damned one. I accept your blessings from a God who throws up on people like me. I do this with a smile. I do this while eating the sweet Manila mango you peel and slice for me. Yes, abuelita, I smile and listen because I know your beauty, because I remember what lies beneath your shame. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and do a poem just in honor of the Divine Feminine and all of my conjuring women here today. It's called Conjuring Woman. Some of you have heard it, but I love it, so. Conjuring Woman. Conjuring woman is agua bendita soul, daughter of diaspora dust that doesn't blow in the wind. She is gathered in molecules of pressed memories, conjoined through heart and bone. You, conjuring woman, you are white dove and black caldero as the santos hang from your neck. Conjuring woman moves in unlit spaces, argues with the voices of the dead, wanders in the company of the ancestors through the territory of her name. Conjuring woman speaks without moving lips because movimiento, movimiento, movimiento is her language. El aire becomes dense as a polyphonic fusion of ancestral tableaus leads her back to the nude primeval African sands, to the African bush. Blackness is vacant no more. Conjuring woman, what can you do with your fingertips in the silent web weaving of paths for your children? Dwelling in myths, the world of the ancients becomes your own. Thank you. I'm now going to invite Toma Lynn Smith to come up and read some poetry. I love all the women I meet through Butterfly Poetry Project. It's just so empowering. So this is another powerful woman, and you know, Toma's another sister. Let's go, girl.
Thank you for the introduction. I hope everybody's doing great. It's beautiful outside, right? Yeah. And we all deserve this, right? Yes. Thank God. Hopefully it stays this way. Tomorrow's going to be 71 on Easter Sunday, so God is good. So I have two pieces to share with you. So the first piece is called 78 East Washington. I'm going to give a little bit of a background on this. Recently, 78 East Washington is what? The cultural center. Yes. So they have a display there of various buildings of Chicago, and so I was fortunate to attend a workshop at Young Chicago Authors, and each of us wrote about what we would like to see in the Chicago Cultural Center, and so this is my response to that, just to give you some background. So 78 East Washington. No Maya, no Alice, maybe Billie Holiday playing in the background. A quote from the author, Abel Maripol: "Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. One Asian, when there are plenty, a city that is home to a Chinatown. Amy Tan, Grace Lee Boggs, a wedding gown from Vera Wang on a headless mannequin. Female is missing. Mothers, daughters, aunts, nuns, absent, as if women don't speak, and colored folk don't speak well enough. We do speak well enough. Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where anyone is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither person nor property will be safe. Frederick Douglass. Through thickest gloom, look back, immortal shade, on that confusion which thy death has made. Phyllis Wheatley. We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. Gwendolyn Brooks. Culture is inclusive, not exclusive. Expanding, not reductive. Words by all, not just a few. Thank you. My Chicago landmark. Past California on 26th Street, after the jailhouse, you see a curved sign which seems to be a big arm sprawled out, a half hug perhaps. A burgundy arm with uppercase light gold letters that reads, Bienvenidos a Little Village. Even if you arrive from Denmark, you would understand that it is welcoming. Curved, round, half circle, a place to gather together. Little village, tiny that it is, patch of brown folk. Big in that everyone is welcome. Commerce, ice cream, families, not cultured or diverse, but life, busy life. 9 to 5 and afterwards, especially on the weekends, more so when Chicago hits 70 degrees. I like Little Village. Not a gated community, not a suburb where only a certain kind are welcome. It says you are welcome. Although the vendors look at me like, are you lost? They gladly take my pesos.
Hello, buenas tardes. The last time I went to a poetry reading by women, I was hesitant about reading, and my daughter said, shut up, you might learn something. So he told me to be quiet. This is a woman's reading, and I feel honored to be here. Especially, since, and I apologize for all the bad things we men do, it's big apology. But poetry is about sharing, it's about life, it's about what we have experienced. And I really want to thank Lisa for being here. It's so amazing. And I will say it again, if you really support poetry, buy the books. Buy the books. It doesn't cost you that much. These artists have put their soul and their life into it. Buy the books. It's how you support it. And you say, okay, I really like your work. It's $10. It's not much. $15. Apenas ayer salí. Hoy recorro las mismas calles y ya no cambiaron. Se fueron transformando junto conmigo. Se parecen sí, pero solo eso. Se parecen al igual que yo me parezco a aquel de ayer, remendado, solo, con el cabello enmarañado de Markelia, casi muerto, casi vivo, imprevisto. Markelia was an amazing experience. Markelia is a tiny little town in the Costa Chica of Mexico, where the next community is completely black. They didn't even speak Spanish. They had one person that spoke Spanish in that town. Everybody else spoke still the African language that they came with. It was an amazing experience. I was only 14 years old, and we hitchhiked all the way up there. And what was amazing is our hair it was wet all the time. It never dried up. It's just, thank you.
Our final open micer is Aja Hall. She has a story. Oh, she has a poem. Okay, we changed it. Okay, Aja has a poem. So please give a welcome to Aja.
Hey, I'm Aja.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. I pour libations to faces with names that never knew. I pour libations to faces with names they never knew. To mothers who never got to tie a shoe. To fathers who cried deeply. Smile sweetly, I pour libation. To warriors and death seekers, creating a better way. To Denmark and Nat, Harriet, Angela, and Tupac, who would say, fuck the world. I pour libation to sick aunts who made poisonous punch and cousins who danced ghostly dance. To brothers and sisters that never saw each other again. I pour libation to friends who battled demons, devils, and thieves. I pour libation for me. To traders and artisans who innocently gave me away. To my mother, who died singing her daughter a lullaby. to kitchen residents who spooned goodness and spirit into bowls, to bowels that were never relieved, to eyes that could never see, to ears that never heard, to hands that never touched, to lips that never kissed. Humble, afraid, and ashamed, I offer libation to those aborted babies who never smiled at me, those legs that never got my tickles or kisses, to eyes that I'd never see, to hands I never gobbled up and fists that never wrapped around my fingers, to the torn apart and sucked out unloved, unworthy souls I so wrongly wronged, judged, I to be forgiven, to be a teenager, to be free, to be in college and have one-night stands. I beg in forgiveness and pour libation to the graves in garbage cans, to reach me and help me to relax, not to shake it off, but to heal. The tears so frequently shed, the fears so rarely shared. I hope, I pray to you, I pour libations.
I'm so glad I have one more taker for open mic. And he came in and he's like, no. And now he's yes. So round of applause for Ramon, please. Yay.
Perfect. A bit on the tall side, so I didn't want to disturb the mic and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a woman, if you hadn't noticed. But like many men, I have much to be thankful for from women, especially namely Lisa Alvarado, my friend who I'm here to support. I think that you women are smarter than us men, and mothers are more stable than fathers. And so even though both have a role to play in society and families and in the world, but I just want to put that out there. That's what I believe. So I wanted to tell a brief story about my mother and my grandmother in tribute to women called Sacrifices. And so my grandmother was an Avon lady. Anybody know any Avon ladies?
Yes.
Okay, so but my grandmother was the quintessential Avon lady. Everything about her house was Avon. I mean, she had bubble bath everywhere, and the soaps, and the this, and the that, and the other. Every gift for Christmas, birthdays, you name it, was Avon, Avon, Avon. Her whole basement, just every wall, Avon. Only thing she had was Avon and a pool table. My grandmother was cool. But anyway, one day I found out that was her nighttime hustle. I thought grandma was Avon, just A to Z, but I found out that was her nighttime hustle, and her daytime hustle was something else. And so one day, my mother needed my grandmother to watch me and my brother, and so we went with my grandmother to her daytime job. I'm from Detroit, by the way, and so she put us in the car, her orange Nova, and drove out to the suburbs, just out, and things got nicer and nicer and more quiet and greener and more pristine and so on and so forth. And then she parked the car and took us in the house and said, "Don't touch anything." And she proceeded to clean the house. And that's when I learned that my grandmother was a domestic. And so that was it wasn't an alarming memory. It was just like, oh, okay, this is what grandma does, right? So we were like, 7, 8 years old, whatever. So then many years later, I'm in college here in Chicago. And, in college you struggle, you scrimp and scrape and everything. In fact, coming here reminds me of my college days. And so this is kind of like, I don't know, euphoric for me. But anyhow, I got an odd job. Helping a young guy who was an architect, and he had a studio in his loft apartment in River North. And so I would help him, around his business and his home, and cleaning and cooking and things like this. And when he had friends over for the holidays, I helped him with that and everything. And then one day, I had this thought. My grandmother did not clean homes and toilets of people in the rich suburbs in order so that her grandson would be doing the same thing generations later. And I quit my job. And I got a better one. And so that is the first part of my story, Sacrifices, in that, I recognize the sacrifice that my grandmother made for her grandchild of a better life, and that I honored that by, saying to myself, no more. The second part of my story has to do with my mother. And so I came up in the 80s. Anybody remember when like Pac-Man came out and the microwave and the answering machine? And I mean, we were the bomb generation, the Walkman, all of that, okay? These kids don't know nothing. Anyway, they got an iPod, they got it made, please. So anyhow, I came up in the 80s, and from second grade I started to be bused to school, and so I was bused to a program called Project Able. We had 3 classes in an entire regular elementary school. So I had Miss Lasker, Miss Gagliardi, and then I had Mr. What was his name? Someone that taught music. Mr. Holt, Mr. Hightower came in and taught French and all this kind of stuff. So anyhow, it was a program. I had some issues though with my classmates, and so kind of bullying going on. I was the one doing the bullying. No, I'm kidding. I was being bullied. And so my mother stepped in and was like, you need to find some other school for my son, so on and so forth. So then I transferred over to a program at this school called Field. And in this school, we had half of the school. So instead of just 3 classes, we had half of the school. And so I had Miss Turner taught English, and Mr. Yee taught social studies, and so on and so forth. And so, this is around the mid-'80s, I believe, and in the meantime, it so happened that there was a consortium of people who were in Detroit, politicians and community organizers that were trying to put together an idea of how we can improve education for urban students. And so, and the spearheader of this movement in Detroit was Alonzo W. Bates, and kind of a colorful character. He had been to jail and all those kind of things, but he really believed in education. So anyhow, the Field program, I think around 5th or 6th grade, maybe 5th grade, we moved and we took over a building, the old Dickerson Elementary School, and the school became the Alonzo W. Bates Academy. Students were being bused from all over the city. It was free of charge. You had to test to get in, so on and so forth. And so I was a part of the youngest class. I was the youngest classman in this school. And there were other upper grades. But I was, no, actually ours was the first class, period. So in this way, I actually was a part of the first class of the first magnet school in the United States. And so I'm telling you that because I ultimately went on to a private high school in the suburbs. There were a couple of options. For most kids in Detroit, we either go to Renaissance High School or Cass Technical High School. But the principal said, this young man needs something even more special. And so she really worked hard with my mother. I was raised in a single family, latchkey kid. You know, my mother left before we got up in the morning, came home after we went to bed and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I went to this private high school in the suburbs, and you know, teenager, didn't appreciate my mother at all. You know, you're this, you're and the other. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, so I feel like I raised myself and all these kind of things, right? And so at the end of my high school experience, I'm graduating. I hugged everybody. I hugged my teachers. I hugged my classmates. I hugged the dogs. I hugged the trees, and I did not hug my mother. And so, and I came on to Chicago and went to college and everything, and I came back home and visited my mother, and I heard her on the phone with a friend of hers, and she said that, and by the way, when I came to Chicago, she moved to Tennessee to work with Saturn Company. And so, I overheard a conversation that she had, and she was telling a girlfriend of hers, yeah, my son, I was so happy that he was getting into school and everything. And so, you know, I put off taking this job down in Tennessee, which totally changed her life. I mean, she was like living like a queen. But she said to her friend that she had put it off so that I could go to this private high school. And so in that moment, I just realized, my gosh, the sacrifices that my mother has made for me, the sacrifices that our mothers make for us, the sacrifices that you all continue to make, and so that, you know, we can have access, opportunities, a chance, you know. So, Mom, I love you. This is CAN TV. You're gonna see this, and I want you to know that I have heard that. I've never forgotten it. My grandmother, rest her soul, I appreciate you in your life for all your sacrifices. And this is also for the sacrifices that all women make. Thank you.
So this is a poem that I wrote that I actually read. It was part of one of the things I did for Beast Woman. And for those of you who don't know this, especially for all you women poets, it celebrates women in the arts, music, dance, poetry, burlesque. You have to audition to get in. They have 2 seasons. Check it out, Beast Woman Productions. It's an amazing show, and I just got into spring. It doesn't have a name, but we have become strangers till death do us part. My curves no longer fit into the rough edges you used to love to smooth. You store me on a shelf between the odds and the empties. our bellies filled with the bitter aftertaste of monotony. Can we pretend? Pretend you still love me. Pretend you still love my meatloaf. Julia Child in 3D black and white. Pretend you love my feet. Wrap your arms around my waist before babies and breastfeeding. I am Ginger, you are Fred. We dance around the kitchen tiles to the rhythm of our own bodies. Pretend we aren't broken, maybe just a little bent. Fragmented circles sculpted into perfect symmetry. And I'm still intoxicated with the man I used to know. Somewhere in the twilight, you are still undressing me with your mind. We bathe each other's scars in the moonlight of silence, bleed happy into the crevices of skin. You will swallow all this indifference with your fingertips. I will sharpen my claws with anticipation. Feed me from the corner of your heart you call lust. Feed me with your breath. Wipe clean each indiscretion with the palm of your tongue. I want to swallow. No, I want to savor your liquid between my thirsty lips. Water me between heart and thigh. I want to blossom into something unexpected, something extraordinary, but we seem to play on different battlefields now. I scream in my empty voice between apocalypse and technicolor dream, only deaf ears for companionship. You see, we have become this human jigsaw puzzle drenched in red. Pretend we have nothing to hide. Peel away each layer of skin to smooth and unblemished perfection. Pretend we came to this point with good intention. Pray hard for the part of flesh which has no wrinkles, and I am perfecting the art of female martyrdom. Maybe next time you, me, we. Maybe next time you can get it right.
One more open micer. Tara Betts, an amazing poet. Where's Tara? Come on up, girl. I'm so honored. The open mic is like a long feature. I have so many amazing poets. What a blessing. And here's Tara.
Oh, I can't touch things. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Because it's mad low. I'm like, okay, all right. Okay, I just didn't want to touch stuff and then, and I'm known for breaking the phallic symbol. I'll just read a poem really quickly, but I do want to say, if it wasn't for women like Lisa Alvarado, I would not be writing still today. So I think, there's really something to be said for how women can support each other. So really do what you can to support spaces like this and Beast Women and, whatever else is happening in Chicago now that I'm missing. So thank you, Lisa. Damn, I don't want to read a sad poem. I'm gonna read something funny. Because I'm funny sometimes, but it's an effort. So this is a new poem. It's called The Futility of Bras. We need things. Okay. The Futility of Bras. Among kaleidoscopic colors of matching bras and panties, this dainty arsenal is not cut and tailored for you. Longing for softness and lace occurs, but tiny welts of wire undergird, gel insert padding and foam, and the dents that dimple the strong lines of shoulders persist. What happens when your body defies how it can be held in place? What happens when what frames deem sexy is too small and what you require is more like upholstered architecture? Excluding pornography as a career, you still battle necklines and gravity. There are days when you want to be seen by a man this way. Coy, with your hand half covering your puckered lips, you see that woman edged in nothing but morning sunlight and silk. but you know, the lingerie at Victoria's Secret, less lurid than Fredericks of Hollywood's costumes with cutouts, were not made for a woman tall and full like you. At times, these bras imitate your shape. Pairs of small domes stacked on top of each other like ice cube trays or cups, and no one complains except you. The stretch of nights alone in a bed covered with books and clothes leave little room to remind you of the purpose of such subterfuge, to puff and lift, fawning, red, blue, purple, pink, even orange, envied by peacocks, even though the birds stocked with the brightest plumage are almost always male.
Here we go again. Hold on. Yeah, I always get mistaken for my students. I'm a teacher, Chicago Public Schools. Yay! Yay! And I always get mistaken for a student, so yeah, this is why. I do. They're like, oh, sorry. You know, they call me running through the hallway. I'm like, I have to get my class, so. Yeah, life of a teacher, short teacher. I am so proud to present our feature, Lisa Alvarado. She's been a mentor to me and to various women in this room, and I think it's great for her to come back, for all of us to come back, and we don't, I think there's like been 6 degrees of separation, because it's like, oh, I know you from Facebook and I know you from here, and then it's like, they're all here in this room, which is amazing. And I think I think it sends a message to Lisa about how powerful her words have been throughout our lifetime, because I also wouldn't be here. I met her a long time ago and I was in a bad spot, and she's reminding me about what I told her about my future plans, and they've come to fruition, and I don't remember that this is what I wanted to do many years ago, and so here I am, and it's a blessing to have Lisa here, and I won't bore you with that, but I will tell you about Lisa if you don't know who she is. Lisa Alvarado is an educator, poet, novelist, and journalist, the founder of La Onda Negra Press, author of Reclamo and The Housekeeper's Diary. I have one of her books, Raw Silk Suture. It is available for sale today, so please support. Her first novel, Sister Chicas, was released in April 2006. The novel is a coming-of-age story concerning the lives of 3 young Latinas living in Chicago. It won second place, best first novel in English. This book of poetry, Raw Silk Suture, released by Florin Canto Press, 2008, was positively reviewed. She has curated multimedia exhibits. She's also a writer for La Bloga. I could go on and on. She's won awards, and I'm just so proud that she's here, and I can call her friend, sister friend. So round of applause, please, for Ms. Lisa Alvarado.
Can someone help me get the mic closer to me?
Do you need a chair?
Just up a little bit.
Do you want a chair?
That'd be great.
Okay.
And a chair.
And a chair. I got the chair.
And a chair, porque el artritis me duele. Feeling a little old today. Before I get started, I just want to thank everyone in the audience. I want to thank new friends and old friends, brothers and sisters of my heart, the people that have been woven in my life as family. I'm blessed to know you, and for those folks that were kind enough to say I was helpful to them, I have a debt that I can never repay for all those who've come before me, for all those who extended their hands to me to help me become the person I am and the writer that I am. And I think about people like Luis Rodriguez, who was the first person to say, you're not someone who wants to be a writer, you are a writer. And with a debt like that, I can spend the rest of my life trying to pay that back. I'm going to do some unpublished work, some new work, some old work, and some essays. Basically, over the last few years, I've relocated, and the writing has sort of taken the form of both poetry and essays, and you'll hear some of that today. And I get to sit down for part of this, so that's good. People have mentioned that April is National Poetry Month. And every once in a while I'll have a conversation with someone who'll say, well, you know, how do you know something's a poem? What makes something a poem, you know, as opposed to just writing? You know, what's poetry really good for? And I'm reminded of what Robert Frost said, and he wrote, poetry is a way of taking life by the throat. This poem appeared on La Bloga and Con Tinta, and it's about the use of a poem. It's called Anthem. The poem as blessing, the poem as contraband, the poem as Molotov cocktail, the poem as balm, the poem as napalm, the poem as a slap, the poem as a kiss, the poem as a curse, the poem as revelation, the poem as revolution, the poem as Sunday church supper, the poem as the lash and the Underground Railroad, the poem as firebrand, the poem as fiery cross, the poem as poema, the poem as child labor, the poem as striker, the poem as 8-hour day, the poem as panhandler, the poem as shopkeeper sweeping the street, the poem as checkout line cashier, the poem as hotel maid, the poem as computer nerd, the poem as hunger, the poem as cornbread, the poem as pozole, the poem as char siu, the poem as fry bread, the poem as thirst, the poem as wine, the poem as cool water, the poem as the taste of blood, the poem as runaway, the poem as assassin, the poem as shooting gallery, the poem as garter belt, the poem as liquor burn, the poem is knife cut, the poem as splitting the take, the poem as the payoff, the poem as saint, the poem as sinner, the poem as silence, the poem as a cry in the dark, the poem as sleeping in on Saturday morning, the poem as bebop, the poem as something found, the poem as something broken, the poem as a way in, the poem as a way out, the poem is hallelujah, the poem as Baruch Hashem, the poem as salam alaikum, the poem as red brick dust, the poem as holy water, the poem as cabrona, the poem as patrician, the poem as puta madre, the poem as sanctuary, the poem as cemetery, the poem as battlefield, the poem as bed you sleep in, the poem as left hook, the poem as knockout, the poem as beat down, the poem is getting up off the mat, the poem grabbing you by the throat, the poem grabbing you by the balls, the poem watching you fall, the poem watching you sleep, the poem as your dreams. The poem is just another day. I'm really happy to be reading for women in a space declared by women and sanctified by women's thoughts, women's words. One of the things that I want to do, and this sort of dovetails what my friend Ramon talked about, is the story of my life is I am Chicana, and I'm a Jew, and I'm a working class artist. And one of the things that I did in the course of my travels was I was a maid in the household of one of Chicago's wealthiest families. And These were two people who lived in a 2,000 square foot condo in a high rise on a street that I had never heard of, East Lakeshore Drive, which is around the corner from the Drake Hotel. And I remember the first day that I went to work there, the woman in the house said, you know, I just want to show you around. I want you to get used to everything. And we toured this long hall and this amazingly huge apartment. I saw her closet, which was the size of my studio apartment. And at the end, I thought, well, this is great. I've seen everything. I'll come back to work tomorrow. She says, oh, no, wait a minute. And what she did was go into another room and bring out for me a basket. And she says, I just have some laundry for you to do. And the basket was full of her panties. And that was my first day on this job. And this poem is called Hand Laundry. She wears purple flowers near her vulva. They scatter carelessly on black satin or white lace, depending on her mood. She wears panties as thin as a lie. Mesh, thong, crotchless. I shouldn't know these things, but I do. I know when someone made her wet. I know her smell. I know when blood comes, staining like an ink blot or a trail marker. She wears cantilever bras, bras that silently say, touch me, take this. I shouldn't know these things, but I do. She doesn't care what I know or don't know about her. What is important is that I fold and store her life, her sex in the right place, and keep my mouth shut. I have a little request here, so I'm going to be looking that up. One of the things that was interesting about this job is that they did have 2 adult children, and the youngest, the son, was still in college, and he would come home on breaks. And the house went from complete order to complete chaos. And along the way, there's a story about the son telling me he had ordered pizzas at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there were call girls instead. But that's another poem. This is about taking care of the house when he's home. And it's called Sons of the Very Rich. His mother says, he's a sweet boy, a good boy. But I see someone who does not understand that my day is over by the time he manages to get out of bed. That I walk so slowly because my legs hurt. And there is no Porsche to take me where my real life begins. I see someone who buys birthday presents with trust fund money by phone and pays someone else to wrap and deliver them. He manages to sign the card on his way to the bar. I see someone who's 19, white, Jewish, who hangs posters of Wu-Tang Clan and Bob Marley. This irritates me. Like the calluses I have on my hands from scrubbing his toilet. I want to ask him, who does he think will be overthrown when the revolution comes? But it is a good cover for the amount of dope he smokes. His mother says, he's a sweet boy, a good boy. I see someone who always smiles at me on his way out and leaves me 5 loads of laundry, wine stains on the carpet, used condoms to be disposed of before his mother gets home. His mother says, he's a sweet boy, a good boy. One day, he'll be a good catch for the daughter of the very rich who will hire someone like me to clean up after them both. Even in this day and age, women who fully sort of claim their own space, particularly in the arena of their own sexual identity and sexual power, risk sort of the social equivalent of being taken to the stocks or being taken out to the public square to be stoned. So I have two pieces that I want to read that are about basically bad girls. And with this first, I have a disclaimer that just remember, while you're listening to this, that even though Mick Jagger sang Sympathy for the Devil, he was not a Satanist. This poem is entitled Necromancer. I don't want some young boy rife with bad French poetry trying to give me le petit mort. Come and get me, Bone Shaker. Baby, you know who you are. The one who'll grab it by the throat before it's gone. Honey, I'm a soul eater. Dark with shadow, I'm the reaper and it's harvest time. Armageddon in your arms. Bring it on, baby, bring it on, 'cause I've got something for you. The others didn't make it, but baby, you're smarter than that. Older than dirt, dirtier than love. Slip it to me, do it right. Honey, put the hurt on me, black and true blue. Give me that cadaver's ring. She doesn't need it anymore, and I've got plans for you. Yellow-eyed and low down, entrails bleached white. I've got that hard luck story, baby. I need someone to do it right. Kiss me, baby, harder. It's coming, can't you see? You know you want it, sweet thing. Come on, baby, tell me. I'll drag my fingers down your face, find your favorite artery. I'll be a good girl, baby, and I'll close your eyes for free. Staying on the theme of tribute to bad women, the next poem is called Bad Dog. What they forget to tell you, what they never tell you, is that bad dogs remember they are wolves. I am a bad dog. I do not listen. I do not heal. I lope under the bone-white bowl. I find the trail and paw pale snow. I sniff frost, black dirt, night air. No collar around my throat. Slipper fetching failed. I never passed as pet. I bear my teeth a grin. I want to read in the middle section. It's a series of 3 essays, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of poems. Some other things about my story is that I'm a survivor of violence, including sexual violence. And I say that because I find more and more it ends up being a very common, if not universal, experience for women. And I once had someone sort of categorize my work as confessional poetry. And I know that that's a popular literary term, but for myself, I reject that. I do write honestly, hopefully, about my life, but I don't have anything to confess. And that this first poem is written for my mother, And an interesting story about my mother is that she was a model. Her name was Rita Alvarado. She did print ads for Maybelline mascara. However, this was the 50s, and what they did was lighten the picture to change her skin tone. And they only shot her from the bridge of the nose up because she had very strong Indio features. And this is a woman who was trapped, I think, by time and circumstance and our culture. And my mother was also a drug addict and an alcoholic. And I think so many of her dreams suffocated that this was one way she found to open a door out. And this is a poem for her. I am looking for you, Mother, looking for you everywhere, in the corridors of dreams, windowless, empty. I look for the door that will lead me to you. I look, but I never find it. I am looking for you, Mother. On these hard streets and cracked sidewalks, I run past carnicerias, babies dressed for bautizos, family parties in backyards, but you are never there. I am looking for you, Mother. I play Billie Holiday just like you did, and I think if I close my eyes and wait long enough, I will smell your perfume, and you will finally be here. But you never come. Doctors took you away. You took yourself away with pieces of paper neatly lettered with milligrams and the proper dose. And they help you forget that once you were celebrated, almost called beautiful, by people who thought it was a shame that you were so Mexican looking. So you give the man the paper, and he gives you the pills. The pills help you. The pills have stolen you from me. I am looking for you, Mother. A woman kisses my hand, and I think it is you. A woman holds me, and I think it is you. My lover tells me he thinks I am beautiful. Not almost. I think about you. I wonder if I will ever find you. I wonder if you will ever kiss me. I wonder if you will ever hold me or tell me I am beautiful. And I wonder if you'll ever know that I wrote this for you. And having bracketed these two essays with that poem, this is from the book Still Life. The other pieces you've heard today are from the book Raw Silk Suture. And yes, these classics of American literature are available for purchase. And I'd be happy to sign sold copies to any member of this audience. It's interesting. I'm going to read a piece about an incident growing up and a piece about forgiveness. And I have to say that I had to write the piece about forgiveness before I could write the story of what happened. And once I read this, I think you'll see why forgiveness is so important. And by the way, for myself, forgiveness does not mean sugarcoating and Pollyanna and everything was all right. For me, forgiveness is releasing myself and releasing the object of my resentment. Because one thing I've learned is the man or woman who you resent becomes your master. And this is an essay. This is an essay that appeared in the fall issue of Memoir Journal in their Guns issue. I am 7 years old. It is somewhere in the middle of the night, the time when little girls should be dreaming. I am in my bunk bed, the lower one since I am the oldest. I am awake, listening. My sister Cookie, 3 years younger, sleeps above me. Laurie, the youngest, is in a small twin bed across from us. It starts like it always starts, like the buzz of a storm before the hurricane hits, when the air feels electric, when the roar gets louder and louder until there's nothing else. My father is yelling, swearing at my mother. I can hear them move from their bedroom down the hall, across the wooden floor to the kitchen. It is always the same. I hear them. He screams, she screams, he curses her, us, the day we were born. Sometimes he hits her. Tonight is different. Tonight the yelling rolls through the house like thunder. The voice comes closer, closer, closer. He is in our room. I squeeze my eyes shut, hold myself still, pray. I prayed a lot as a little girl. Get up, he yells. Get the fuck up now. When I open my eyes, he's already dragged my youngest sister, Laurie, from her bed. Laurie is half asleep, rubbing her eyes. She knows not to speak. Cookie climbs down as fast as she can. She is little, frail, pale skin and big eyes. I get out of bed and we look at each other, look at Laurie. I am big for my age. Big boned was what they called it then. My two sisters seem so much tinier. We try not to look at my father. He pushes us all into my parents' bedroom. My mother stays in the kitchen. The yelling that had pelted us constantly all of a sudden stops. It is quiet, like the inside of a hurricane. I remember I learned that in school. He lines us up by the dresser, with me, the first one, then Cookie, then Laurie. He goes then to the closet, tossing things out. I hear him cursing softly now. He finally emerges, and I see a greenish blue metal in his hand. I blink and I look again. What he has in his hand is a gun. The three of us are still, so very still. I am squeezing Cookie's hand, and I am praying that Laurie is holding her other one. I don't pray for God to save us, because it hasn't happened any other time I did. My father takes me by the shoulders, pulls me close to him. I see the gun coming toward my head. I say nothing, but I am cold. I am so very cold. And I can still feel a hot tear run down my cheek. I feel the barrel against my head, cold too, my father pressing it against my head. I hear a click, but nothing. I tell myself the green-blue thing is a fish. It is a fish that will swim away. Click again. Nothing. My sister's hands loosen and fall away. Maybe she swam away, I think. One more click. Nothing. No one moves, not even my father. Finally, he says, "All of you go to fucking bed. I'm sick of you all." I take my sisters and I quickly get them to bed, try to cover them, touch their hair, touch their faces, tell them it will be okay. It will be okay. And then I get into bed, but I don't sleep well. I've always been a light sleeper. And the piece that I wrote before I had the wherewithal to write this one is published in Still Life and also in La Bloga. And it's called Something Like Forgiveness. And at the time, I'm living in rural Vermont, which was quite the culture shock. Something like forgiveness. It's going to be an early winter in Vermont, and I'm on a back road in the gray, wan light of a cloudy morning. The trees on either side of this dirt road lean forward enough so that above me is a bower of wind-shimmered green leaves, tipped with rust and yellow, remembered sunlight. It's cold enough today for a jacket, but my faithful little Ford is kicking out enough heat so that I can go without. I'm wearing clothes that are the same gray as the light around me. And I'm thinking about forgiveness. I grew up in a family where I experienced violence so horrific that I stopped asking for help by the time I was 8. It seemed like a story, too fantastic to be really happening. And after years of silence and secret writing, bad love and harsh booze, I spoke the truth about the violence, both physical and sexual, and I called it out for what it was to my family. The only acknowledgement I ever got was my mother saying my younger sister had it worse. The net result is that they severed all ties, and so since my late 20s, I've been an orphan. When I tell new friends that I am a self-made woman, they do not know how true that is. It's as if someone cut out a huge loop in a movie I was watching. I do not have the addresses or phone numbers of my sisters. 2 of them are married, 1 I can't say. There's a whole generation of children who are young adults now that I don't know and have never seen. My father lives near one of my sisters, I think. 5 years ago, my mother died, and I found out by accident. Given the state of things, I would periodically enter my parents' names into search engines looking for what I don't know. One morning when I was at work, what popped up was an obit that was 6 weeks old, and it was my mother's death notice. I went on my own and found the grave. No one in my family ever told me. What does this have to do with forgiveness? For me, it isn't about saying it's all right. What happened can never be reconciled that way. It's stepping back enough to see that my father visited on us the pain he learned as a boy in his own house. That my mother did not have the resources to leave, that my sisters cobbled together a family that met a need of theirs that I could not share. That the only way for peace for them would be at the cost of removing that source of discomfort and to ignore what they couldn't work through. For me, it meant and means releasing them, setting them and myself free of expectation. These are people I knew, and we lived through some terrible things, but we were only on that path for a short while. I choose another road, and in this fall's morning light, I continue to see another way. I want to read some poems about love and relationships. You know that time when you first fall in love and everything is just sort of cast in a rosy glow and just, oh, darling, the way you hold your water glass is so wonderful. And darling, the way you fold that newspaper is brilliant. And then real life sits in. And you have your first argument. And if the spirits are with you, it will be the one and the first of many to come as you carve out that hard-won space where the pretense is over and the romance is dead, but what you have is real life and real love. And this is called Love in Wartime. Thousands of miles apart, we stare at each other, open mouths that cannot express the leagues of distance between us. Exhausted, hot tears streaming down our faces, or worse, a stone lodged in our hearts, deadbolt against our lips, silence filling the room like smoke. This is the kind of desperation that makes you want to run. Sex, wills made to break or bend other ties. We exploded all the landmines. Our battlefield is strewn with the remnants of good sense. In this war, we cannot be safe. We cannot listen to the wise counsel of friends. We struggle under the weight of our weapons. We are foolish, but still faithful to the cause. And we do not say never. I found myself divorced and living on my own in my late 40s, and having the experience of sort of trying to date in your 50s. And I started to get that worldview, well, not everybody gets everything in life, and I can make a good single life for myself, and I have my faithful companion cat, and I will go forth and be single. And I used to hate the advice from happily married or happily partnered friends. Oh, this is the best time of your life. This is where you can just know all your independence and sow your oats and live in your own space. These are, again, people who have a nice warm body laying next to them in bed, talking about my not so warm bed. And got to the point where I thought, well, if I don't meet someone, then I don't, and that's that. Then lo and behold, life has a funny way of always surprising you when you least expect it. And I met the person that I'm with today, my true love, John. And this poem is called Groundwork. How could I know that deep in this frozen winter, you would be an aquifer? Aqua vitae, warm as blood. Agua vida, feeding the roots in the dreamless dark. Sleeping so deep, they had forgotten the memory of trees. I kind of want to wrap up today's set with a poem that I'd like to dedicate to two people in the audience, two women, two writers that I am proud to say are fruits of the same tree, that we have blossomed together on the same tree, and their lives, their example, their work bears fruit, and I am proud to call them sister. This is for Sandra and for Tara. And this is called Night. I am in my mother's house. The house is her body. I live in her body. The night is her womb. I float in the water of dreams. She bathes me in starlight. I will not be afraid. In the water, in the dream, I rise above myself, still inside my mother, still held by her, in the house with no rooms, in the perfect body of my mother. Above myself I see I am born each day at dawn. The sun is a rupture, daylight, birth pains, crowning until I meet myself, until I come again to my mother's house. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Sandra Santiago.